Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link together with a thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, Eli, Chocolate Saiyan, The Adam Meakin, Brian's Logic, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
God save the king!
Hello.
Hey, good morning.
I personally think that. Oh, my bad. Everybody say hello, hello, hello.
Good morning.
So you said it for me, Eli.
Afternoon.
Go on, Eli. We're all on 10.
I personally think the flavor of today's show, after the housekeeping questions are maybe integrated somehow, we should all bring up scathing remembrances of the questions that Globe Earthers just refuse to answer.
You're saying we are going to have a remembrance show for questions we used to be asked but are no longer. Have you got an example?
And it's exactly what the housekeeping questions are, which is why I tried to get it in early. Like, for instance, if you were to ask, say again.
No, I've got you. I follow now. So if I say any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth, we get a no, but then we also hopefully get someone saying, yeah, we don't get asked why buildings are blocked by the physical geometric horizon anymore, for an example, right?
Exactly. Because I asked Kosho yesterday and I realized I never get an answer. Like, there are certain questions that they kind of go mum's the word. And they'll wait for someone to interject, and then they'll latch on to that red herring and they'll ride it into the sunset, yada, yada. So one example is, okay, since the 8 inches per mile squared equation is incorrect, which one is correct?
Hold on. Whoa. Who says 8 inches per mile squared is incorrect when that is very much the rhetoric?
A bunch of them have said that through the years.
I was specifically yesterday, and I asked a lot of people, but specifically yesterday it was Kosho, because whenever we talk about that, someone always says, yeah, but that's not accurate, right? Why? Because these people started saying that in the face of our us handing them their defeat with no geometric curvature anywhere. So so I decided, well, it's been about a year. Let me ask you now, since we're talking about it. Hey, what do you think? Because everybody else was talking about it. I asked Kosho specifically point blank. I was like, well, since all of your counterparts are saying that this is an incorrect approximation, then what would be the best approximation so that we can utilize an observation with that approximation and see if we get good results or not? You know what he did? He was like, oh, my bad, I didn't hear you. I asked him again. He said, I have to go get dinner.
Yeah, that's because it is the correct approximation. It is the correct. It's not an approximation. It's the exact what it has to be based on their radius.
That's right.
They were corrected on this several years ago by George Netjuk and someone else after him. And now they also have another glober called Icon Scientism who corrected them on. Right? It's like, no. If you don't understand, if you use the chord line through their circle, right, that's the drop. That is the drop rate. You can't have any other drop rate with a radius of 3959 miles. That is the drop rate.
Okay, so what?
Of course, it's incorrect.
What we're discussing is the contradictory assertions that come from Globe Earth heretics. So upon the defeat of their argument in regards to Earth curve, they'll start telling us nobody's expecting to see Earth curve. Well, the 8 inches per mile formula's not right. These are globe heretics. Yeah, 8 inches per mile is what you claim. We've debunked it, therefore, what, it's not what you claim anymore? Yeah, that's globe heresy.
Yeah, the radius of a sphere, 3959 miles, that's a straw man. That's my favorite one. That's better than the 8 inches per mile squared not being accurate. I love that's a straw man. Really? That's a straw man.
That's not the only straw man. Like,
Well, you're the
because
latest.
you have a logical syllogism in the arguing of the black swan observation, and they say that's a straw man too, which is the straw man being that we didn't claim that the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3,959 miles, resulting in geometric horizon that's 1.2 times the square root of the observer's head and feet. We never said that.
Yeah, you did. Every time you claim a boat was disappearing over the curve, you said that. Maybe not in so many words, but that literally was what you were saying.
No, but Eli's not playing devil's advocate when he says that. He's saying he, as a flat earther, is not claiming boats go over the horizon or that there's a curved Earth at 8 inches per mile squared. He's not saying that. But when we defeat it, they then, like Simon done with axial rotation, reposition what is in fact the globe Earth claim onto the flat earther, so they can say the flat earther is wrong. So you saying that the Earth has an 8 inches per mile squared drop rate, you, flat earther, are wrong. It's like, no, that's the globe claim. But you need to attack me, the flat earther, and say that me claiming something that the globe absolutely without question claims is wrong. Because then they can attack me on my understanding of the globe, which is win-win for them.
Your reference frames are ruined.
But no, what Eli was just saying there a minute ago. What was it, Eli, you said again? That every time they referred to the Earth curve calculator, what did they think they were referring to? What was the radius of the globe they were referring to within Metabunk?
I think that's specifically where he tapped out. Because actually, I said I can use GitHub. I can use no, I didn't. I said I can use whatever the first one Google gives me, and the reason I said that is because when we first retorted with, just look at any calculator on Google, he said no, because you can use Metabunk. And I was like, well, you use Metabunk and I'll use GitHub, and we'll see what the differences are and if it makes any difference to the argument levied against you. And that's when he said, I'm going to get dinner.
This is the guy who is gay. Sorry, go on, Chuck.
No, go ahead, brother.
This is the black, gay, Jewish Texas guy you're talking about, whose father is Blue Mara Science.
Yes.
Kosher. Yeah. And he says can definitely be taken as fact. Yeah.
Speaking of radius value, is there any evidence of it? Earth radius, the R value?
Just real quick, I was going to say, don't they see that that's the problem? That they're not even in agreement with what this measurement should be if it's an objective measurement of drop rate. The fact that one person can go to one site and somebody can go to another one and get two different measurements for the same thing, and they don't see that as a problem.
Yeah,
Well, it's actually two different things.
White swans still exist.
Oh, see, the problem is it's actually there's two different elements to this. It's the 8 inches per mile squared equation, and then it's the distance to horizon formula. Two different things. Now, this is where the argument becomes circular, because when we say, well, how do you prove the radius then, after going through all of the 1.2, blah, 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 then they'll say, well, we can use observations of drop to determine that. Oh, okay, then, so back to the original question, which 8 inches per mile squared equation would you, or which one of these approximations of a parabola would you like to use?
This is
it's not a parabola. Go on, Adam. It's not a parabola. It is, and it's not.
They're all parabolic equations. Yes, they are.
no, they're not.
No, they're not. Go ahead, Adam.
Oh,
It's a
correct
squared
me,
function.
please.
It's a squared function. It's not exponential. It's not parabolic. It's a squared function. Go ahead, Adam.
This is where they sacrifice to me, where they admit the truth. So if they are losing, they'll attack the 8 inches. Now, 8 inches is not correct at any point whatsoever in relation to a sphere of 3959. Just isn't, because it is just a logarithmic function which matches over very closely, but at no point correct. It matches the curvature of the supposed ball Earth. And it was something that bugged me. That's why I actually derived a formula to calculate it exactly. Because if you are doing stuff, you do need to be accurate. And I say 8 inches out all the time. But if you look at things like Metabunk, they use a similar derivation to me, which is just infinitely more accurate. But my only point was that's something they'll defend up until the point you're attacking something else. And that would be a distraction tactic I've witnessed, Eli, down the line, where they will attack 8 inches just as a distraction to get the point, and to move away from what they were losing. Sacrifice.
Right. If you're attacking the assertion that we've got a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon, and then you insert the maths of the globe calculator at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, it's far easy for them to claim that your assertion of a 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet observation of a geometric horizon is wrong. Now, obviously, that's why we call them globe heretics, because they're more than willing to attack the globe claim in the first instance once it's been put forth by the flat earther. No, you don't understand the claim, will normally be the way it goes, so that you can argue about the globe claim, which is, as I said earlier, win-win for them either way.
Yeah, 1.22 is a calculation, but it is also an approximation. It makes some concessions, so it in itself isn't fundamentally accurate, a bit unlike, like I say, the Metabunk calculations or mine. Mine, you can do it as in kilometers. If you want to know curvature, it's 6371 minus the cosine of the distance times 0.009 times 6371, and that will give you the exact drop in kilometers.
6671, yes, that's just exactly how I worked it out too.
Yeah, I thought you did. A week before me.
Couple of weeks, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Brian told me, but yes.
But yeah, so that would be how I describe the differences. But say fundamentally, that when you relate to that and they go, oh, 8 inches per mile squared inaccurate, they are technically correct, but it's being pedantic because it's perfectly good for most optical observations as an approximation. But it is burning their own bridges, isn't it? Just to me, to distract, because they're losing in some other way. So it's just, I'll burn that one.
Yeah, but Adam, if you, like, I never even get to the point talking about 8 inches because I only talk about the radius. But if you use a chord line through the circle, does that not match the 8 inches drop? You're using a chord line between 2 points, between the observer and the point.
No.
Even the first one is 7.9 inches, isn't it? Or 7.8 inches. So you see, it's just an approximation, but realistically, look, who cares? Because most of the time it's optical. So it's good enough as a rule of thumb that you can do the maths in your head. And you can't do my maths in your head unless you've got a cosine table in your head. Do you know what I mean? To be accurate. So it's just useful as a rule of thumb for what the claim of the ball is.
Yeah, but like I never even get to it because as soon as one of them say, "Oh, that's not accurate," I go, "Yeah, we don't see it anywhere. It's not reality because it's not." And on top of that, they're claiming they were the idiots who were claiming 8 inches, who were claiming they had a drop, didn't realize that the people above them were claiming that everything we see is refracted up anyway. You know, on a constant basis. So it's a joke. Sorry, you never have the drop rate even with their claims. It can't happen. They have a claim. One second, Eli. Sorry, they have a claim of a drop rate, but then they have another claim that shows you how you can never have this drop rate. You know, it's contradictory.
Got a quick question from the super chat. Michael Kahn says, any evidence of the 7 missing Russias?
That was epic.
Yeah, well, just Eli wants to say something, so I just say this very quick. The only response I got back about my presentation from our opposition was 2 things. One, they were trying to correct me on they were trying to correct me on the maths. Like 2 of them, at least more than 2 of them, I think 4 of them, including Wolfie, missed that because they didn't watch the presentation. They missed that the maths fault I put in that was in there intentionally because they didn't watch it. The one that Mitchell pointed out. So they got caught on that one. But other than that, they were just the only responses I got was that nautical miles squared and squared nautical miles are different. That's all I got, right? Must be something I was saying or doing or whatever. It doesn't matter. But they were mixing it up with square miles and cubed miles. I won't even go into it. But other than that, all I got was that that a curved radius is just a non-traditional radius. That's the main pushback I got. That you can have a curved radius. That's the main pushback I got. Besides the nonsense about the maths, was that you can have a curved radius. It's just a non-traditional radius.
Non-traditional? Are you having me on?
Yeah. Proto said that to me, and others agreed with him. A non-traditional radius.
So,
Does that
speaking
have
of
a non-traditional baseline as well?
Well, I'm going to ask the question about axial rotation, but before I do, I'm going to highlight that Wolfie hasn't learned his lesson, the dumbass. So he's still in your comments talking about drift in relation to what the plane accounts for. So you've got Wolfie 6020. Just read out one of these paragraphs. What changes when you fly across the equator is direction of drift? Okay, Wolfie, clearly still failing to understand the claim that the globe makes, which is Coriolis drift, something only observable as you turn beneath. You complete dumbass. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
Just to jump back on the Wolfie bandwagon and to link it to what Eli's
You're a bit quiet, Adam.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking that. This is another good example of what they do, which is to jump on something false and attack that. So Rue Hiffs contacted me this morning, having a go at Brian's presentation. Explain to Brian that the surface area of a sphere is not as simple as pi r squared, which I think was gone through last night. So then all we've got is he then attacks me in a weak way.
So he can demonstrate a limited attention span and his ability to ad hom you. That's it. That's the response.
That's it. That's all I've had this morning. But literally to point to create a straw man. But like I said, to tell Brian that the surface area of a circle that is not on a spherical surface is not as simple as pi r squared, which I know we covered.
Well, Adam, I asked a couple of them. Could they tell me what the correct nautical mile squared is for the surface area of their globe? And none of them would come back and say it because that's what I wanted them to do. Because it's much more devastating than what I put in.
It's not even that, Brian. They've got nothing. It's clearly over their heads. So all the point I'm making is this is quite traditional. Is to come back with a straw man argument, something you didn't do. Do you know what I mean? And just try and attack. It's a poison in the well, isn't it? Look.
They want to attack the maths and say, so they can say to anyone that asks them about it in the future, oh, he got his maths wrong, which is not true. None of my maths were wrong. Or my conversion from statute to nautical was wrong for the squared mile, for the mile square. But that's because that was intentional. I knew what the right one was, but I did the intention. I intentionally did it wrong, so they would correct me, which they always do, right? Try and jump on something, and when they correct me, it's worse for them, not better.
So I realized what's going on. Now, when we're talking to them, we are talking to them. when they're talking to us, they're dog whistling to the ignorant, which is typically the audience, the section of the audience that we're trying to get the point across to, right? So if you say something like, well, for instance, the horizon is a geometric consequence of the size of the sphere, 3,959 miles is the radius, and then they have these formulas online and yada, yada, yada. Once you say that, sometimes the tactic is, oh, I see what you're saying, and then they'll say what you didn't say. And when you start arguing about that, the audience member who's ignorant doesn't recognize at that moment that what you said is the rhetoric. They're hearing what the other person said that you said, because they put it in dumb layman terms. It's like, well, I can understand what he said. Is that what you're saying? And you're like, no, no, no. But they don't understand the claim in the first place. So it's a wash always. Either a wash or they're convinced by Glober.
Just in regards to radius, I want to read out Theo Megaworthy's super chat, but I'm going to slightly paraphrase it. So your wife isn't cheating on you with me. You just have a non-traditional open marriage. Thank you for the super chat, Theo Megaworthy.
By the way, Brian, saw your shows this morning. I couldn't catch them yesterday, but I watched them this morning when I woke up. Awesome shit, brother.
Thanks, Chocolate.
Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
That's funny.
So given that there's a fair degree of connection within the flat Earth community to the effects of magnetism and a bait and switch with ether, I can only assume that this is going to get covered on tonight's show, so it's my opportunity to plug that show. So be here or be sphere for Quantum Erasers Ballbusters, 7 p.m. UK, 1 p.m. Central Standard. And we're going to be covering the ether. So there's a summary show, in essence, is what this Ballbusters will be. Wrapping up some of the issues that have been covered in this particular stint. There's been many of discussion in regards to ether. So check it out. It'll be on Quantum Eraser YouTube channel this evening if you're in the UK, or this afternoon if you're in the States. Check it out.
You said we're covering the ether? What's that?
Good question. We'll be covering that as well. So be here or be sphere on the Quantum Eraser YouTube channel later on this evening for us in the UK. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
What is it?
Gravity? Space-time bending.
What's that?
A fourth-dimensional pseudo-Ramonian geometry. Bending.
Cool.
Who's traveled to the fourth dimension to validate that?
Sorry, did you say travel? You mean in physical terms? No. This is only existent in maths. There is no travelling to a fourth dimension. We don't have a fourth dimension. You can describe. Maybe I can level this confusion. You can describe things in the maths of that fourth dimension, travelling and influenced by that fourth dimension. You can describe that travel in that maths of that geometry. In this case, fourth dimensional pseudo-Ramonian four space-time.
While simultaneously just living in the reality of the third dimension.
Yeah, the three-dimensional length, breadth, and depth that we experience in physical terms isn't going to be describing or experienceable with a fourth-dimensional description of a journey. That isn't possible. But you can describe a journey within fourth-dimensional space-time in the maths and geometry of fourth-dimensional space-time. Hope that's clear.
Sounds a bit superfluous.
I mean, it's a conceptual realm, Arwin. So, I mean, superfluous is one way to describe it. It's also simultaneously the worldview of the Western civilization that we experience.
Well, it's supposed to be, but is it really? Or
yeah, it is really in the mind's eye of those people in the Western world. Yes, most people think that is true.
Yeah, but do they actually know what it is they think is true?
No, but they
No.
believe no that clever. I like it. No, they believe a different type of gravity that they were taught at school, unless they got to university level where they were told that the gravity they were taught at school isn't correct, and it's actually the Einsteinian gravity I just described. That would be bending space-time. Most people are under the misapprehension that mass attracting mass, and therefore you pressing against the ground when you merely stand up, is gravity. Incorrectly so. It's not. It's the bending of a fourth-dimensional space-time.
So there's always a switch going on, I noticed. Even in schooling, they teach you one thing in grade school. When you go into higher learning, then they teach you the pseudo-Ramonian force-based nonsense. Okay, I got it.
At university, yeah. Or college, as you guys call it.
Well, where else is the medium of light supposed to propagate as a wave?
Light does not propagate.
Wait, but
as a wave.
Right before we get all into there, if that's where y'all going, it's like here we are again. It's just the wayward traveler that comes along, reads a bit of literature and goes, "Oh, Einsteinian gravity and Newtonian gravity is different." And then you have the I don't know if to call them the globe peddler or the antique. I don't know which one to call them. They'll say to the audience, "No, they're the same. They work together." It's like it. No, well, okay, fine. Show me that.
You can't. You can't show. Hold on. Hold on. You can't show a fourth dimension in a three-dimensional realm. That's not possible. You can't. They're not interchangeable. They're a completely different geometry.
So then how can they work together?
They don't work together.
They're incompatible mathematically.
Completely. They're totally different geometry. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics? Any evidence you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
Negative.
They like to say they have, but they never really prove it.
Well, no, they always measure it off a flat baseline.
Celestial navigation.
Navigation wouldn't work.
And it's working on a globe.
I like to refer to McToon's little escapade.
What, offering up flat Earth elevation angles and asking us how they work on a flat Earth? Yeah, great.
Wait a second. They say that celestial navigation works and it's working on a globe. Therefore, you can get an elevation angle from a curved surface because they're navigating. They always have.
Shout out to...
That would be a violation of the celestial sphere. Sorry.
It would be a violation of the celestial sphere model. Ask Dad anything, says from the super chat. Is this the hashtag size matters era? Question mark. Thanks, Brian and company. Thanks for the super chat. Ask Dad anything.
Thank you.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
It's over here.
Is what you learned in school evidence?
Depends what you learned. What do you tell me?
Well, they told me 91 back then, but I think it's 93 now. So what evidence do they have of that?
91 million miles. That's what you're talking, right? Be specific.
93.
What?
93 million miles. Wouldn't that make the sun illuminate the sky at night as well?
It's just calculated based on like Venus comparison, angular size, etc. I think something like that. I don't remember.
Venus compared to what? Earth?
The presupposition of Earth size and then Venus being the same and then angular size, something. It works on based on that, right, guys?
No, you can't have angular size on the globe. It doesn't account for any perspective. All globe mathematics are all orthographic.
I know that, but that's a straw man response.
I love it. Arwin's Baldwin comes out of him immediately and claims straw man. Yeah, Brian, that's right.
It was to what I was saying. It's true, though. I said it is true, but it's just not like how did they establish that number? The number is somehow established and then in a mathematical framework, and that was originally based on the assumption that Venus was the same size as Earth and the presupposition of Earth size, and it being a ball.
Well, you have to start with the angular size of the sun. So once they started with that, the average angular size of the sun, then they can make up all kinds of rubbish. I could do the same, and so could you.
Yeah, but how did they establish the 93 million miles?
Okay. They took a presuppositional R value measurement from a geometric horizon that they cannot see. They then superimposed that Earth-based R value onto Venus so that they could apply Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion for the scaling values. Because, as you look at the lights in the sky, you do not know their size or their distance. So you need to assume one. In this case, Venus is assumed to be, quote, Earth's twin. That is merely Christian Huygens superimposing Earth's radius value onto Venus to give them scale. From there, you can derive the distances and sizes of all of the celestial items based on Kepler's third law. Ergo, you end up with a 93 million mile sun.
Right, so I did describe it roughly. You said it perfectly. I did not, without any references, but I basically got the gist of it then.
Hold on, and nobody questioned this nonsense when it was taking place? Nobody said...
No, nobody listened to Brian. Nobody listened to the response. Do you want to just step in again, Brian?
Yeah, it's all based on the angular size of the sun. You can't have angular size on a globe because there is no perspective or accounted for within globe mathematics. All globe mathematics are orthographic. And the globe is back engineering of flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris, which is also perspective, so not globe.
Perspective hijacking works for both the begging the question proof of nothing Earth curve calculator and for their derivation of the land masses onto their maps by way of the celestial sphere model. Well, that celestial sphere model is made up based on the perspective view you get when you look at the stars, in this case Polaris, and how it would appear as you back away from it. Well, if you're backing away from Polaris and it drops towards the horizon, what you're describing in essence is how things appear in perspective. So by comparison, if you back away from the Eiffel Tower, the top of it drops towards the horizon. That's a perspective, detailed description, not anything to do with the orthographic Muppet view representation where they take the differential from two flat planes in the measurement and describe it in orthographic view as an Earth curve. Meanwhile, you can't acquire the measurement in the first place. Where they start, this all begins with the angle. And you can't have that on a globe. So they can back engineer it and describe it after the fact as though you've rotated a protractor through 1 degree, but in reality you're measuring an angle off a flat plane. Thank you, Brian.
Can I just point it out that the eclipse in 2017 debunked the model as well. That's why they want to push the distance to the sun further out. They can't, that they have to change the whole model. But they were expecting the moon to be eclipsing the sun for 4 hours, and in reality it was 5 hours. So 1 hour of discrepancy, meaning that the sizes are not matching their maths. So they realized that already. So they want to change again the distance to the sun.
Sure, but you can change it based on the scaling values in Kepler's third law to anything you like, so long as you assume either a distance or a size. So you just change Venus. You just take it out of the rhetoric that it's Earth twin. Bob's your uncle. Give it a different scaling value. Make it bigger, make it smaller. Do whatever you like. Any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
No.
What is gas pressure?
The pressure a gas produces.
Force
So
the
then
gas.
why is the
Force the gas exerts on the walls of its container.
Did you
so
catch
then
that?
why is the air thinner in Mount Everest?
Say again, Neil. Why is the air pressure around Mount Everest?
No. They say why is the air thinner? It doesn't. It's not. It can keep going.
Because the temperature is
Thinner
different.
there.
Yeah.
No,
And
but there's
why
more
is
to
there
it.
air
It's not just
in the
temperature.
first
There's
place?
there's a whole raft of effects. But in terms
Yeah,
of
but
what gas is
that's
doing, it's dissipating. It's created at ground level amongst the vegetation, of which there is very little at the top of Everest. And shockingly, it defies the conventional belief of what gravity is to make its way up. But as anything expands into a given volume, it becomes thinned out. It disperses. It's a law of nature. Dispersion is an entropic effect. Well, as it's highly concentrated when it leaves the ground or comes out of the plant, it gets less concentrated as it expands to fill the space. Now, for us to be able to measure any pressure ever, there must be containment to form the pressure so we can then later describe a gas pressure gradient. But that is merely the entropic effect of dispersion.
Right, and it's the reason. That's the reason why the air is thin. Of course, we have containment because if there was no containment, there would be no air.
Well, there'd be no pressure, correct?
Yeah.
The gas would fill the space,
Yeah,
and if the
it's a
available
gradient.
space was the space of the sky vacuum as claimed, then the gas would fill that available volume, and we'd all be dead. We'd have no gas to breathe.
Correct. Not just the Queen. All of us.
Neil.
Yes.
Mount Everest is 5.4 miles high. Most clouds aren't 5.4 miles high. There is what's known as the air boundary layers, right? And the air boundary layer is where water vapor condenses and becomes a cloud, right? And this will change depending on temperature. So in warmer temperatures, that air boundary layer will be higher. In colder temperatures, it will be lower, right? So the reason that we have such high pressure close to the surface is because we need it to live, number one. But number two is because the majority of our air, and I mean the absolute majority of it, is below cloud level. There isn't this situation where you just kind of what's the best way to put it? There isn't a situation where there is this build-up of gas happening above us. That's not happening. We have gas cycles that cycle with the earth, the surface, all the time, every day. We have air boundary layers. We have temperature, and we up above us, high above us, there is a low-grade vacuum, and we have gas pressure. All these things can't be had without a container. There is no way to have any of these things without a container. So who cares what they say about Mount Everest? Most of them couldn't even tell you what height it is.
I'm pretty sure that concludes the housekeeping. We've covered all of them, have we not?
Yes.
Cool.
Yep.
Excellent. Damn sight quicker than it took yesterday. Last question came out about 50 minutes past. There we go. Very good. So is there any more thoughts from the Discord server in regards to Brian's excellent presentation yesterday? It was new to most of you guys yesterday, which is why I'm asking.
I said it was awesome.
One guy in the comments, which I must admit I really did laugh when I read it, said, "This argument's getting really old." I says to him, "This is the first day it's been released."
What an idiot. Well, a lot of people claim that all we do here is measure angles and talk about measurements and things like that. So, we only talk about the things that devastate the globe.
There's a criticism of the show, which is that it's repetitive, and that's intentional by design. you know, understanding a lot of this information from me personally took it being repeated to me on multiple occasions. And me having the ability to say, I don't understand, can you explain that again? What, the thing I explained 3 seconds ago? Yes, please. So repetition is how you learn things. Well, by that same nature, there's always going to be a certain level of refinement to what we do here, even in the things that we repeat. But there's also the constant addition. It's not a stationary object. It's more like a glacier or something. Yeah, it's moving slowly. You know, you're still going to hear the same core information on a daily basis at Flat Earth Debate. And yes, the nuances are sometimes very subtle, but those nuances get discussed and it's polished into this blade that we describe as the cutting edge of this subject. That isn't to say that there isn't sometimes a new hilt or whatever they call it, handle added to the sword every now and again, or whatever. You know, there are things added. And in this case, literally in the last 24 hours, there's been a new argument presented, a new arrow in our quiver, or however they describe it. That's what we've got. Just another argument.
It's dynamic.
Yeah, it just adds another layer to what we present here. And, you know, those things don't come along more than once or twice a year. This year's been 2, I think. We've got the elevation angle argument as a whole, came out 2022 and was refined and really started to get ground in 2022. And now the CEA argument, again 2022, but we're getting on. What is it? 9th month. So yeah, you know. Go on.
There's also the argument for the pilot and mariner who were 6 miles apart at the equator, getting the same zero to Polaris. That's also an absolute destruction, because the reason the mariner gets the zero in globe rhetoric is that because Earth curve got in the way. But what's getting in the way of the pilot? Why is he seeing zero?
Right.
Curve.
These are subtle refinements to other arguments that you can't deny in that regard. We're talking about an expansion to the geometric physical limitation that is Earth curve at 1.2 times the square root of the, what was that again? Oh yeah, observer's height in feet. Ergo, their claim of a physical geometric sphere edge limitation directly has connected to it the ability to bring back and obscure things based on height, except the stars. They have absolutely no effect. Doesn't matter if you're a couple of miles up and you're looking at the star. It'll be on the horizon for you and on the horizon for the guy on the ground. What do you hear him cry? Oh, well, that's because it's all coming, the light's coming all parallel. Oh, really? So not affected by 7/6 of the Earth's radius, terrestrial refraction, always never to be violated, the hand in front of my face isn't really there. It's actually all straight lines. Yeah, it's a complete mess at the moment for globe believers. I mean, a real mess.
Yeah, by even claiming parallel light rays means that you're relinquishing Earth curve. That means it was never Earth curve getting in the way of anything. It was only ever an effect of parallel light rays.
Precisely. Precisely. Where's the differential between the two planes if they're all coming in parallel? You haven't got a differential to describe the curve with if they're all parallel. Further to that, you're telling us since 2020 how non-parallel, non-straight, definitely not straight, always bent at a rate of R they are. They're just so screwed. Not a good time to be a globe believer.
Just to add, when they stated parallel light rays as a rebuttal to how the pilot sees zero at the same time as the mariner at the equator, how they both get zero to Polaris, even though the pilot is 6 miles above the equator and the mariner is on the sea, is taking an angle off the sea level. When they said parallel light rays, it was a pure panic response. So, and then they had to stick with it. So they had no choice. They said, they had no choice but to stick with this. And it means absolutely nothing. I mean, parallel light rays absolutely explains nothing. Do you know what I mean? All it does is relinquish their Earth curve claim. They just had nothing. So say
it does two things.
I told you that was the quick say something.
Yeah, but it not only relinquishes their Earth curve, it takes their positioning data to the center of what is effectively then the celestial sphere model, not the globe Earth model. The globe becomes a globe burger with you at the center of it. When they move these light rays parallel, your positioning becomes central to the sphere, doesn't it? I mean, in reality, that model that they're actually detailing is you on a plane with the perspective view of the heavens above you and looking at it based on the angle from the plane. But they dissect a sphere and put you in the middle of it to achieve that when they describe parallel light rays. That's what they're actually doing. So we're not standing at the center of a sphere. You can completely remove the globe from this description and have you standing on a plane measuring an angle to a star precisely as you do in reality. There's no, oh, well, no, that doesn't work in reality because your globe model's actually an orthographic view. You're not going to be detailing how perspective or angular sizes work for things. There's no issues in that regard. You're just measuring off a plane the angle. There's nothing complicated about it in terms of how it works, because the world isn't very complicated in that regard. We just live on a plane.
Can I give an example of just how thick and stupid Wolfie 6020 is?
Your camera's on, by the way.
Earlier,
did you know your camera's on?
Sorry?
Your camera's on.
Me? Oh, sorry. It's only looking up his.
You don't live on a plane.
But how stupid Wolfie 6020 is when I asked him earlier, early this morning, why does the pilot get a 0 degrees to Polaris when flying over the equator, and a mariner below him or on the sea on the water also gets a 0 degrees to Polaris? Where's our curve, right? And you only came back with, because when you're in an airplane, the horizon is several degrees below you. It's like 0 degrees, Wolfie. Right, so several degrees is not 0 degrees. Right.
Hold on, well, that would mean, hold on. By extrapolation, that would mean that his view should be, with parallel light rays that they're claiming, of a dropped horizon below the star. In other words, you should have it a certain degree above the horizon if he's claiming it drops. It's like, okay, well, if they're all coming in parallel, you've got to have a gap between that star on the horizon and the horizon, i.e. it's no longer on the horizon if the horizon's claimed to have dropped because you're at elevation. What, precisely like it's claimed to be doing in your Earth curve maths? This is a massive problem, Brian, you're right. This could be, this counts as a third thing in 2022, definitely. They haven't got Earth curve to block the stars. When they raise in altitude, their assertion of 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, giving you a geometric sphere edge horizon, no longer applies.
Exactly, and when the comment you put up earlier, or you were referencing earlier from Wolfie, that's a reply to me on about several different things. One of them was to do with the gyros, but that was when he wrote in that. He says in that comment that you showed, he wrote because the horizon is several degrees below the airplane. It's like, well, in that case, you can't get a 0 to Polaris if that's your claim. You know what I mean? You can't be getting a 0 to Polaris, a 0 degrees horizontal measurement, which is what the bubble sextant will do to Polaris, if the horizon is several degrees below you.
Right, it's no longer 0 degrees. Oh my God. Wolfie, you're dumb. What has it been? Not even a full month since the last correction when we pointed out that your drift that you think you're accounting for in your plane and are reiterating this very comment is only observable as you turn beneath things. And now you're claiming the measurements that you take to the stars are going to be influenced by the drop in the horizon that you're not seeing? You complete bonehead. Wolfie's becoming very embarrassing. Almost a liability for the globe, I would say.
I don't think they think things, Brian, I don't think that they think things through. They just blurt it out of their mouth, whatever they say, and then they deal with the consequences later, which they never do anyway.
But that's what Tucker said. Quick, say something. That's what they're at. Quick, say something.
The problem is...
Just say something, spew it out, it doesn't matter. That's where we get some of the best quotes. When someone's up against the wall, like Tim Osman, or in this case, Wolfie, they spew out some garbage, you get gems. Like, nobody claims the horizon is Earth curve. Nobody's expecting to see physical geometry. Is that right, Planet Walk? Hey, Roofy, how's that geometric horizon working out for you, buddy?
The problem I see, and we've all talked about it, is the first lie, that you live on a globe, a sphere. So how do you take elevation angle measurements? Well, in the world's globular view, light must come in parallel because the angle is taken from a presupposed equatorial plane. Then that angle, using the equatorial plane as the baseline, is a corresponding angle to any part of a curved surface as long as you draw a tangent plane every time you do it. So they lied about the Earth first, then they needed a way, and they said, well, light must and has to come in parallel for celestial navigation to work on a globe surface, because we're getting the angle from the center from a plane, and we need a tangent plane on the curved surface, and those two would be corresponding angles. So now it's come back to bite them.
Well, the claim of parallel light rays was something that they needed to hijack Eratosthenes' observation or demonstration, because within his demonstration, he proved that this angle can't be this angle that the length of the shadow can't happen on a curved surface with a close and local sun. The sun would have to be very far away and a much bigger diameter, and the rays of it come in parallel for those shadows to work. So they had to start. That was when the thing that they promoted to kids in school as the measurement of a globe Earth's radius, right? That very demonstration by Eratosthenes, that was hijacked because it proved a flat Earth. Just like some of the official shows off of National Geographic and others have said, right, that they have to use a big angle to do it. Yeah, it's actually an adjacent of 500 nautical or 500 statute miles. That's how long your adjacent has to be, a horizontal adjacent, for that to happen. But for the shadows to work on a globe with a radius of 3959, then the sun has to be much bigger and further away, so the light comes in parallel. Otherwise, they won't get the shadows.
Well, that's exactly.
Most ballers don't even know that. Go on.
But that shadow is the same one at the center of the Earth in their equatorial plane. It goes back to Hipparchus in King's Dethroned, when he said, I believe all the luminaries are infinite distance. No one checked it out. Everyone based everything on that. And so this lie has been building up and building up. Now it's time to tear it down as we are, and everyone's doing a great job.
Yeah.
Well, in the presentation last night, one of the things.
Just 1 second, Brian.
Sorry,
what did you want to add to me, Kipstreet? Go ahead.
Yeah, so we hear this all the time, that if you lay down, you can see a sunset, and if you stand up, you see another one. And if you go to the top of the Burj Khalifa, you see a third one. You know, Neil deGrasse Tyson, a bunch of famous people say this. Now, to be fair, this argument has come out years ago. It was back in 24/7 1.0, so over 3 years ago. McToon used to come on there before he got big, and we debated him then, and he was trying to use the stars going towards the horizon as proof that it wasn't perspective causing any effects of what we see in the sky. You know, he was assuming object constancy in a physical 3D space. Now, part of the reason why they do this is because they need a unified model of the universe, right? So, for example, the universe here and over there is similar. Rather than thinking, oh, maybe the stars is a completely different realm than the Earth we live on. It's like they don't jive with that. They just assume it's all one big, Cartesian free space where objects exist within it. Like Darwin says all the time, they have object constancy bias. Same like a little child who hasn't yet reached 5 years old. They don't understand the difference between permanency of objects, right, and concepts. There's all kinds of experiments you can go and watch where kids finally have an epiphany that an object put in a box is still in the box, right? It's hilarious to watch adults do that same mental gymnastics to themselves. So back then, we did argue with McToon about the nature of perspective and lights approaching the horizon, right, and what is causing them. And I want to say we did have a kind of an angle on there where it was like, why don't the stars behave the same way the sun does? Because remember, the sun does allegedly have parallel light rays, yet they simultaneously claim that you can see two sunsets. So why can't you see two star sets? So an argument would go like this. So you explain the sun argument to them, or they explain it to you, and you say, okay, so your claim is that a star with parallel light rays you can see twice if you raise your elevation set, correct? And they'll be like, yes. Then you say, okay, then how come that doesn't happen with any of the other stars beside the sun?
Yeah, beautifully and succinctly put. That's a great summary. Why can you have a sunset be brought back based on the obstruction? Because the limitation in the near foreground is what's claimed to cause it, if that's a claim of Earth curve obstruction, and then you raising above the obstruction to bring back the sun. The same effect should happen with the stars. You've got a physical obstruction to your view, you raise above it, and then it's not in the way anymore. Now that should be more exaggerated the closer to that physical limitation called Earth curve that we debunked in 2020 gets. But it isn't. That's not the case. So therefore, there is no horizon at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height, because it would physically obstruct things that were behind it, like stars. And you'd raise above it and see them. We don't. So yeah, I'm definitely going to count this, Brian. It's the third. Alwyn calls it physical assumption bias. He tried to get it in the middle of your explanation, but yeah, you are describing the same thing. Yours is more eloquent. No offense, Alwyn.
Excuse me?
Okay, I will. So the celestial navigation videos, they all say if the light rays were not coming in parallel, it would be impossible to do celestial navigation from the surface of a globe, and how right they are, because they never do it from there. They do it from the equatorial plane, and through the Haversine formula, reify the surface of the Earth as the outside arc of a protractor.
Okay, so what 10th is describing now is the idea that you're standing in the center of a sphere. And I said earlier, that's actually you standing in the center of the celestial sphere model. Now, we don't reify this model either. We're just pointing out how when you're claimed to be standing on a plane in the middle of a sphere Earth, what we have fondly named the globe burger, the meaty center that is the globe Earth isn't required. It's surplus to requirements. Your angle measurement comes from the center of that surplus to requirement sphere and out to the stars that you're measuring with an angle. So if you're just standing on the surface measuring to the sky, what you're doing when you utilize that measurement isn't taken from the center of a sphere Earth. It's just that simple. But that's what they're claiming when they say the light comes in parallel. Furthermore, the light coming in parallel, aka straight, isn't conducive with their assertions that we've got a sphere-shaped air wrapping around a sphere-shaped planet, bending the light at a rate of the radius. It's just not conducive at all.
What they're doing is they are reifying the stars into what they believe the sun is. They have claims about the sun. Then they said all the stars are basically the same things. They're all suns as well. And then they have the pre-assumption that they behave the same as the sun. But we don't see star rays. We see what we call sun rays when they are coming down, diverging from the sun through clouds and stuff. That's when we see sun rays. That's when we get to see them. We don't see star rays. We see star light. I don't go out and go, wow, those star rays are blinding me tonight. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't happen. You know what I mean? It's just making stuff up.
Just one last point. I do want to introduce QE to the conversation to plug the show that's going to go on this evening. But just a matter of interest, can you all see my screen being presented in G+ right now?
No.
Just click on my screen so you can.
Is it the one with the sun?
Yeah. Can someone
see that.
just show me where the parallel light rays are, please?
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
It's not the scale.
Irrespective of the scale, they're converging.
Like, no. Sorry, Matt. Maybe you misheard me, Adam. No. Sorry, I think there's been some breakdown in communication between myself and Adam, and I just need to get this clarified. No. Not converging, Adam. No, that's not the globe rhetoric. Well, you're not listening. Parallel. What do you mean converging?
You said what's in that picture. There are no parallel rays in that picture.
Heresy.
It's because it's a misrepresentation. I mean, everybody knows that terrestrial refraction will also make sunlight that moves past the Earth bend a little in order to cause the crepuscular rays.
I thought it was just
no. Their descriptions of this eclipse requires that they converge. Correct, Adam? Joking
Yeah,
aside.
it's the light can't behave as previously claimed for this phenomena to occur within their model. It has to behave like this.
Just one more time, Adam, a little bit louder, please, just for the audience to just get that down, pegged.
Yeah, the light cannot behave as previously described for this effect to be created in their model. It has to behave as shown in the diagram to create a number and penumbra.
So calling all cars? What the hell? At the moment, we're being told about parallel light rays to overcome your little problems with not being able to get angles, unless you're talking from the centre of a sphere Earth. But, I mean, this is definitely a mainstream claim in terms of how eclipses work, and this definitely isn't parallel. I mean, quite the contrary. I mean, that ruins this explanation. If you're going to claim parallel light rays, this doesn't work anymore. So come on, guys. I mean, why would you be telling us parallel?
Hold on, Nathan. I'll see your claim, and I'll raise your claim with my claim from NASA that I just posted in Master Debaters, Master D. I want to present that real quick.
Okay, let's have a look at this. Now talk us through it.
Yeah.
Well, what do you see? You see the sun with arrows going straight, pointing at the Earth and the Moon during the solar eclipse. I have the same type of diagram for the lunar eclipse. It's kind of different than the one that you had.
Much better.
When does that happen? And which one is correct? Because apparently we're being told simultaneously these are both correct. So
No, but this one
it?
is much better, and it also has this note not to scale, which is perfect. Like, so they actually trying something.
But this
In
is
the
from NASA.
meantime,
This is looking so realistic, man. This is much more like the science fiction.
Okay. I've just figured the question to ask. Can you show me in this diagram umbra and penumbra, please?
No.
What do you mean,
over
no?
there.
Hold on. You just told me this was wonderful. Now show
Yes.
me umbra and penumbra,
They didn't
please.
take into account the
Oh, I'm a being
terrestrial
rumpus.
refraction
What's
that
going
would
on?
bend the light after it hit the Earth.
Check it out. Baldwin's launched very much into character. Why was I being rumpus during that? So was that a no chocolate before the Arwin rumpusing on behalf of Globers everywhere?
Yes, that's a no.
That's a no. Oh dear. Okay, let's just take this off screen then. I mean, just in case somebody who was telling us in the last few days about, parallel light rays.
I really like that visual. It's awesome, but they did not incorporate terrestrial refraction actually causing the umbra penumbra.
Oh, that's the third issue.
Okay.
That's even
Give it
further
up.
down the line, Arwin. That's another big problem.
I know.
I sent the other one that's got the lunar eclipse. It's literally the same thing. All they did was switch the moon and the Earth positions.
Yeah, that checks out.
Right. Well, the moon also has lunar refraction, kind of like terrestrial refraction, but slightly less. And that is what causes the parallel light rays from the sun hitting it or going past it to form the penumbra as well.
The moon
Lunar
got an
refraction?
atmosphere, has it, Arwin?
That's what I was waiting for Adam to pipe up. Go ahead, Adam.
If we're having lunar refraction and we assume that terrestrial refraction is due to the atmosphere, that would require a claim that the moon actually has an atmosphere.
Yeah, well, it is within the Earth's atmosphere, officially admitted. So it's just like 1/6 or something, or even less. It doesn't matter. There is some air there around the moon, so there will be minor terrestrial refraction, also known as
we
lunar
can get into this
refraction.
You know
nonsense.
what? There will probably be just enough to create that effect, won't there?
Exactly.
Oh God.
This-
Okay.
It's this
Thank you.
magic
Thank you.
zone where it just perfectly matches.
Thank you. We can get into this nonsense later. We're already 5 minutes over on the live show. QE, you there?
Good morning.
Can you plug your show for later, please? Our show.
Yes, this afternoon at 1 p.m. U.S. Central, 7 p.m. UK. Ballbuster Special Edition. Ether, Priest Exposed. Mae West is blushing. They're going to need a new priest. Thanks.
With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, hit the thanks button after the fact, joined as a Patreon member, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream, and I've been Nathan Oakley. I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!